Hello art lovers, or those who would love to love art. Welcome to my window art gallery. I am Loretta, and my role in these videos is to be a sleuthsayer of culture through art. Try to remember that the viewer is always right and your views matter. I will pause the video and give you you pause the video and give yourself time to write down what the art brings up for you. It could be a feeling, an emotion, a story, a memory, or a commentary on something. Whatever comes up, take a few minutes to write it down and don't censor it. Just write what comes to mind. Okay, here's the composition for today. It's called Determination. It is 48 inches by 32 inches. It is wallpaper and acrylic paint on drywall, and a Dremel was used. Okay, great. I'll put a close-up. So just write down your feelings, what comes up for you, maybe a story, commentary on culture, whatever comes up for you. Okay, let's get into it. So how I see this and what came up for me in this will be different than yours, and that's exciting and great and correct. So what came up for me is this woman is trying to get herself up. She keeps trying to get up from the floor, and these spikes keep holding her down and pinching into her. The spikes to me represent all of the things that over my life I just couldn't understand why I couldn't get momentum. Every time I would get momentum, I would be knocked down, and I could never understand why. And it wasn't until I researched it did I realize that our culture was run by patriarchy, which oppresses women and stacks the deck against us. And how I found out about it was, it's this strong arm that we are strong. We are internally strong. Spiritually, we are internally strong. It is a spiritual adventure and journey. And what helped to keep me lifting myself up when I was able to get online, because everybody around me was also raised in the same culture. So I had to get to people who were understanding what was going on. So people like Gloria Steinem or Gloria Allred, and some of the new young women coming up like Rebecca Traister, and a lot of black women were also rising up, and Native women, and Hispanic women, and women from India and all over the world were all, they all had leaders trying to make change and to push back against the patriarchy. And I would start listening and reading stories online and getting myself educated to understand what was happening. So as a young girl in my home and seeing some of the things I was seeing in the houses and in my home about women being beaten and nobody helping them, there was no way to help them. Now when I look back, I didn't understand at the time why wasn't family helping, why weren't people helping? Because our culture was stacked against women and let men off the hook. And they were allowed to beat women. They were allowed to even rape their own wives. And slowly over time, that's changing. And now with the Me Too movement and Time's Up, that's making a big shift now after all these years. But my childhood and upbringing and seeing that had an effect. And then going to school and not being asked in class to answer questions, or being too afraid and hiding behind my hair. I remember in chemistry class explaining an answer, and one of the guys in the class told me to be quiet. I was confusing the class. Like, it's total, keep pushing down, keep pushing down, keep pushing down. I was more of a tomboy and played sports, so I ended up playing with a lot of guys, and at the time, so I didn't really think anything of it at the time, but I can see now that they were the power group. I didn't know that at the time. So over my life then, you know, getting married and believing of inequality and partnership and seeing that wasn't showing up in my relationship, being totally shocked by that, not being respected in my relationship, and all the things that came against me, and culture would just keep telling me, oh, be a better wife, be a better this, always blaming me. And I would, you know, teach Sunday school, I would teach brownies, I would do things to be a good girl and to do the right thing, expecting that the right thing would come back, but yet more and more was coming against me until I was slowly being beaten down like this, just not understanding the injustices and the unfairness. And then when I started to stand up against it, and I said, you know, no more, and I said, I'm getting out of this relationship, I'm gonna stand up and show you what you've done to me. All of culture came at me, not just the peripheral people, but friends, family. They were all trying to push me back into that box, and they used terrible things against me. They used the courts against me, which were run by men. They used the police officers that would write down stories that I would tell them when I was being threatened. They would write down the wrong information in the stuff. This is all patriarchy. They used my children against me. They made up stories about me. It was shocking, and it was slowly beating me down because I couldn't understand what this was. And then over time, through studying, I realized it was patriarchy, and that, you know, we're not being paid fairly. When I went into a job, I remember standing up for a pay, seeing that the boss was not paying people fairly, and went to the boss to tell them what was happening, and said, you know, because I used to work here 20 years ago, I see that this person that took over my job never got a paycheck raise, and they really needed my what I knew. So she said, well, she'll pay me more, and I said, well, only if she gets paid more, and she wasn't going to do that, and I stood up for that, and it caused a huge ruckus, and I just couldn't work. I didn't want to work there, and said I'm not going to be working here, and which, you know, they had to let me go first because, you know, women aren't allowed to stand up. We're not allowed to speak up. If we speak up, we get pushed down. I went back to school for computer network engineering, and I remember studying in class and being very studious because I didn't understand computers, so I worked really hard. And in the class, the teacher would ask questions, and I'd raise my hand, and I'd answer the question, and he would say, no, it's not right. And I look at my partner, who is a guy in the class that we're all partnered up to do these projects, and I said, what is that? I said, it's written right here. And he was just so dumbfounded. He didn't understand. I understand now that I'm not allowed to know. Women aren't supposed to know, so they keep oppressing us. When I went into the workforce, I couldn't find a job in my hometown. I was told by the people that were hiring, like the one person, of course, because I was older when I went back to school, some of the people that were in the jobs were people I went to school with. And the one that I wanted this one job that had great opportunity, and I was told that that a woman couldn't do that job, and he couldn't be professional around me. Every time I tried to find a job, it was just being knocked down. I finally found a job 3 hours away, and a woman hired me, and but during this job, which was amazing, and I loved my job, I did a lot of great work there. This her brother, the boss, cornered me in the filing cabinet and tried to sexually assault me, and I told her about it, believing that she would just take care of it. And I don't even know, a few weeks later or something, the next thing I know, I'm being escorted out of my job that I had moved there for. Totally shocked by this, and nobody told me why I was being laid off. I didn't put 2 and 2 together till I heard that he was in court with other sexual assault charges against him. I wouldn't know, because in our culture we are blamed. It's our fault. We're the ones who pay the consequences for their behavior, and I didn't understand any of that. And so when I was in the courts with trying to get my divorce, it lasted 6 years. The lawyers dragged this on for 6 years. Just the men just taking more and more money, using the children and the family, and it just exploding that whole system, and doing so much damage, and just slowly being beaten. Trying to get fair pay for equal work was another one. You know, we're working harder for less pay. And it was just ridiculous when I was seeing this. And these are a lot of the things that are happening in our culture, and we're starting to recognize them and being told about them and being educated. The other things that would come, I would lean on my sisters for my friends and stuff for help. And not even knowing that we were pitted against each other, we were competitive, until I was in a group where we all talked about how we were really feeling. And I started to see that behind the scenes in our heads, we are putting other women down. So the energy that we're putting off is negative energy that is not empowering, it's not supportive, and we feel it. We can feel this. And we've been taught to do this, to keep us divided so that we don't come together and stand up for our rights. This is all of these things that just kept beating me down. I ended up getting so beaten down, I got some help, and they suggested I do something I love, which was art. This is when I finally got into art, and I went back to school, and it was amazing going to art school and seeing all the artists and learning how to put in how you feel onto a canvas or whatever. And I was finally getting some energy back. And one of my friends that I'd known for 20 years, he was in my life as like a brother, because I didn't have brothers. He was like a brother. I was starting to build myself up, and I was starting to get really excited about my art. And at a party one night, he came up to me and he said in my ear, whispered in my ear, "Quit being so self-promoting." Took the wind right out of my sails. I was so shocked. I still didn't understand patriarchy. I was just starting to learn. I was starting to push back and try some things that I was told to try at parties, to see who's doing the talking, and if you talk, what happens, and then bring your girlfriends into the conversation so that they can be included, see what happens there. And I was so shocked by all of this stuff I was seeing. Some neighbor friends of ours came over for tea once, and they're in, the guy was in probably about his 70s, and they wanted to see my art. I was showing my art, and he walked right across it. So this is patriarchy, right? Whenever women try to get up, they just have to be knocked down. It's just not okay. Just starting a conversation with somebody, they start with the answer no. As soon as you make a comment, no. It's just shocking, all of these layers that I didn't even see were there. So I'm trying to get up when all of these things are coming against you. I had written down a couple quotes that I thought, or a few quotes that this composition had me thinking about. One of them was, "Without leaps of imagination or dreaming, we lose the excitement of possibilities. Dreaming, after all, is a form of planning." Gloria Steinem. And when you're being oppressed and every dream that you get is getting squashed and sabotaged and maligned, you lose hope. You become helpless and hopeless. And it becomes very difficult over years and years and years of this to keep getting up when you know you're just going to get hammered again. Any woman who chooses to behave like a full human being should be warned that the armies of the status quo will treat her as something of a dirty joke. She will need her sisterhood, Gloria Steinem. And I found that when I started to try to be a full human being, I was a joke. They thought it was a big joke. Education is the key to unlock the golden door to freedom, George Washington Carver. And curiosity is a shit starter, but that's okay. Sometimes we have to rumble with a story to find the truth. That's by Brene Brown, and that's what I'm doing. I'm rumbling with the story. I'm getting curious, and I hope that you'll get curious, that you'll look at a piece of art, you'll start to form your own ideas. Let the feelings come up for you, things that come, your story or your feelings. They can be different in mine, and if they are different, great. That is where we begin. We start to think outside the programming, outside what we're supposed to think or feel, and start to know and get curious about what we think and what we feel, and it matters. So I hope that you take some time to look around at some art, open up your own mind, have your own opinions, because the viewer is always right. So I invite you to come back, keep exploring art, learn about our culture through art, and try something new in your own life. So thank you for visiting my window art gallery. You could be anywhere you wanted to be today, and you chose to be here, and I appreciate that. Thank you.